welcome to all of you, to our panelists, to you, and to all audience. It is a very good idea to just 3 weeks before the 6th of December trilogue negotiations to meet at webinar and discuss the problem: will the proposal for artificial intelligence work for small, medium enterprises? The debate on Artificial Intelligence Act is crucial for the new phase of digital transformation, especially as we can now discuss not only about artificial intelligence per se, risk-based approach of artificial intelligence system, which was proposed at the beginning by the Commission, very well designed, and general purpose artificial intelligence, but also on generative and foundation models of artificial intelligence and its societal, economic, business, psychological impact. It is critical, it is my view, it is critical point, and on the legislative solution which will be approved depends many things. First of all, artificial intelligence development in the European Union, but not only. New functionalities of, for example, law enforcement and not only. Understanding the significance of trustworthy and ethical aspects of artificial intelligence solutions. But also new great opportunities for education, healthcare area, culture, and business models and productivity growth, which is, in my opinion, especially important for startups and small, medium enterprises. So there are some deep analysis of the effect and impact on productivity of new models of artificial intelligence. And when we are discussing about artificial intelligence vis-a-vis small, medium enterprises, I think that we need to take into account those aspects. The question is, how the solutions discussed now, how the tensions between the Parliament position and some countries' expectations not to regulate so strongly the foundation artificial intelligence can meet. And how it is important making AI and AI regulations much more supportive for small, medium enterprises with clear definitions and clear obligations for all partners, all stakeholders. So what we can do now, how we should define the foundation models and classify their impact, it is discussion under the negotiations during trilogues. How we should use the last proposal of tier rate approach, and what we need to change in this proposal if it would be possible. In addition, it is worth it to know that currently we have, looking globally, 3 important references points for artificial intelligence principles and rules: European Union Artificial Intelligence Act, executive order presented by President Joe Biden some weeks ago, which is also very important, especially for transatlantic relationship, and G7 agreement, international guiding principles, code of conduct, with 11 principles, which are starting to function voluntarily. I think it means that there are many possibilities to participate in artificial intelligence development and base those kinds of activities on some rules and principles, not only on very strong regulations as in the European Union. All those aspects and all those references points are very important for small, medium enterprises environment. It is so significant to have all of those references. And coming back to our today's discussion, what can we do from SMEs perspective? What can we prepare for the last stage of negotiations, for clear classification duties related to tiered approach, or come back to the much more simple risk-based approach. What can we do for future implementation? What will be the role of AI office? What will be the role of all stakeholders, and how to explain some challenges which are important during implementation of AI Act, challenges for small, medium enterprises, and how to avoid overlapping of solutions from Artificial Intelligence Act and, for example, DSA and DMA, which was discussed during last negotiations. And how to avoid situation in which SMEs will play the passive role in using and developing artificial intelligence models, losing the possible competitive advantages in Europe, in the European Union. We have invited for our discussion to assess the current situation, to analyze what will be possible to do in those last steps when we will close in some weeks, I hope, but I'm not sure, the work on legislation. We have invited excellent participants to our webinar. We have Kai Zenner, Head of Office and Digital Policy Advisor for Member of the European Parliament, Axel Voss, Head of the his main advisor. Till Klein, from Applied Artificial Intelligence, Head of Trustworthy AI. And Miguel Vala del Olmo, Spain, Permanent Representation to the EU, Digital Transformation Attaché. I hope that he will appear during our discussion. And Jakub Binkowski, representative of the Polish Union of Entrepreneurs and Employers, very active at that area, with a very strong contribution to the debate. So we can start, and I would like to ask Kai to start and to share with us your experiences from last weeks about negotiations and what is going on now, or what points are crucial, and what is your expectation, how the work could be finished and when. Kai, the screen is yours, please.
Thank you very much, and yeah, thanks for organizing this timely event. Miguel and I and a few others are at the moment very engaged in the negotiations on the AI Act. We all share the strong belief that we want to close the negotiations at the end of the year. The next political trilogue is on the 6th of December, and it's hopefully the last one. But until then, we need to still go through a lot of text on technical level and prepare this last and hopefully final political trialogue. And you mentioned already some topics that we are currently discussing. So, for example, the whole question of governance enforcement, of foundation models, AI value chain, but also the prohibitions, the high-risk use cases, and so on and so on. And as I already said, there are still a lot of open points, points that we needed to park until now. For example, until it's clear if we are having in the final text an office or a board. So even on already closed paragraphs and articles, we then of course need to go back and reformulate or change a little bit based on our latest decisions. A few points. Maybe in my opening statement, I wanted to, besides those general remarks on the status quo, focus really on SMEs and those challenges that SMEs are facing with the twin transition. that the European Commission in this legislative term was proposing and now implementing, because there are really a lot of digital laws that are now coming, combined with laws, as I said, from the area of sustainability, Green Deal, and so on. And it's, I think, especially for those smaller market players, it's not so easy to navigate through this very, very complex system. To start a little bit on a positive note, I think the AI Act tried to learn a little bit from past mistakes, and also try to take into account the sheer number of new legislation that is coming, and especially try to help SMEs and startups to become compliant. Maybe to start with, what the Commission did with choosing a product safety approach was, I think, good. There are some conceptual problems that lawyers like Axel and I see, but from the perspective from an SME and from a startup, I think it's quite useful, because product safety legislation in the European Union is looking back on many, many decades of successful work. And therefore, there are a lot of procedures, definitions, norms, and so on, that, of course, the new AI Act can then also draw back on. There is, for example, in the AI Act, Article 40, which gives companies a presumption of conformity if they are building their AI system based on technical standards, for example, developed by CEN-CENELEC, the European standardization bodies. This will help especially smaller market players, because this was really one thing that was missing in the GDPR. No one really knew how to implement those new rules, and technical standards were indeed missing. Now, hopefully, we will have them, and therefore, as I said, it should become easier. On top of the harmonized standards, there are also regulatory sandboxes. You see that they are now being used as a legal instrument more and more, and more and more laws. And it's all about fostering a kind of constant dialogue between market players, especially small market players, and the regulator, so enforcement bodies of, for example, Poland or Germany, and so on. So in those countries, if everything works out, there will be one or more regulatory sandboxes, which will then enable companies that have a new AI product to check already with the national enforcement body what they need to do, how they need to build their product, for example, in order to fulfill the human oversight obligation in the AI Act. I think also that will definitely help. Then, next point, we also added in the AI Act several times the reference to guidelines. The Commission didn't like it very much, because they don't want to have all those new obligations to draft a lot of guidelines. But Council and Parliament found it extremely important that not something like in the GDPR is happening again, that certain key terminologies are not really defined for many, many years, or that there are very much different understandings. And maybe as a last point, on the positive side, I think what the AI Act is doing particularly well is to really making an in-depth assessment of the digital economy, and recognizing that maybe the cooperation between companies is not always super good. And therefore, what we try to do in the AI Act in Article 28, we try to force is maybe a bit too strong, but encourage maybe is the right word, to encourage all market players along the AI value chain to work together, to really share information and help each other to become compliant, especially for the downstream companies. I think all of that will probably help SMEs and startups to become at least compliant with the AI Act. As I said, there are many, many, many other laws that they also need to take into consideration. But to quickly also say a little bit about certain threats or risk, all of what I just mentioned is only working if governments and also the European Union are investing enough money, because national competent authorities, the enforcement bodies, or a regulatory sandbox is only working well if it has a proper budget. We don't know if this is really happening because, as we all know, there are so many crises at the moment with Ukraine, Israel, but also climate change, supply chain issue, and so on. So that money is, of course, even more rare than normally. And therefore, yeah, hopefully there is enough money left to build up those systems that we try to integrate in the AI system to help the whole economy. With the standards and with the guidelines, much will depend if they are ready in time. Often it happened in the past that laws were saying you need to be finished with, for example, guidelines on a national level in 2 or 3 years, but member states didn't manage to fulfill this obligation. And the AI Act is, as a hugely complex law, really depending not only on the law per se, but all those elements beyond the law, as I mentioned. And if one of those elements is not there in time, is not workable, or was wrongly constructed, then the whole AI Act probably will face a lot of problems. And of course, as a last point, international cooperation. As you, Michael, were already mentioning at the beginning, there are a lot of movements across the globe, and there's now the executive order from the US. We have G7, G7 plus agreements, and so on. So Europe should not think that we will manage AI alone, but we really need to constantly reach out to our partners and try to streamline, because I do believe that even if there is a Brussels II effect with the AI Act, there will be also other ideas flying around, and we need to also adjust a little bit to regulatory concepts in other parts of the world. Yeah, and maybe as a last point, as a conclusion, because all of that and all those unclarity that is currently existing, I would really ask SMEs and startups to engage extremely early. So basically already now, with the transition period, you have probably at least 1-2 years still until you need to become compliant. But use those 2 years. Do not repeat something like with the GDPR that many companies woke up very, very late, but reach out already to enforcement bodies. If there is a regulatory sandbox, try to connect to those. I think the national member states, they do not always have the necessary competence and experience, and therefore they are really looking forward to a strong engagement with companies, with researchers, with universities, and so on. Maybe I stop there.
Thank you very much, Kai. I think it was excellent, and it was very inspiring, because you have shown some positive aspects. So what will be possible and how we need to be prepared, and on the other hand, what kind of threats we need to see, to look at, and on the other hand, I think that the final message addressed to small medium enterprises, engage extremely early. I think it's if you don't want to repeat some mistakes related to GDPR implementation. So I think it's very, very important. Thank you very much, and I think it is a very good background for our discussion. And now I want to ask Till Klein from Applied Artificial Intelligence. What is your view on that moment of debate on artificial intelligence, and how you as an expert and supporter of SMEs development in many areas, also in digital areas. How do you want to be prepared and to support them to start this extremely early engagement in implementation of Artificial Intelligence Act. Till, please, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Michel. Yes, so I would start perhaps by pointing to a few differences that we observe in our work when it comes to startups and SMEs, because sometimes they're treated as sort of similar entities, but we observe that there's actually quite some differences, and just want to point them out. So for one, and we did a couple of workshops with SMEs, for instance, and with startups as well, to conduct the risk classification, right? Understanding what is the risk class of their systems. And we asked them a little bit, okay, where do they come from? And one thing that really came out clearly is that, for instance, small and medium-sized enterprises, they tend to have quality management systems in place, right? So they are often certified according to ISO 9001 or something equivalent or similar. They are more used to work with standards. Maybe they have done conformity assessments because they're in machinery or medical device or something like that, which is something that startups usually don't have. They usually don't have quality management systems or any product on the market for that matter, right? So they're very early in that stage. Also, when it comes to the question of like, who do I need to demonstrate trustworthy AI to, right? If I'm a startup, I probably have to convince my investors that I've got this under control, whereas as an SME, I probably look a lot to my employees. I have maybe a very long-term relationship to my suppliers or even customers, and a very trusted relationship. So maybe I only have a few relationships that matter a lot, but I really need to convince them with good arguments to build that trust. We see some challenges when it comes to expertise and funding, for instance. So also in previous projects, funded by the Ministry for Labor in Germany, for instance, we really have seen that the expertise level between startups and SMEs is quite different, right? So startups tend to have a very strong tech focus, usually have some more like machine learning engineers and others in their team, whereas in SMEs, they often struggle much more with getting the AI basics right. And of course, there's many SMEs, right, who do an amazing job here, not to generalize here, but as a trend, this is what we observe. And perhaps as a last difference that I want to point out here, and this is specifically relating to the AI Act, is that, Kai, as you pointed out, right, so there are sometimes provisions that say, well, level of documentation proportionate to the size, or the fines, or priority access for SMEs to sandboxes. And this is kind of great as long as you meet the definition of what is an SME, right? And this is a difference to startups again, because startups are growth oriented. So they want to grow fast. They want to maybe double their employees, also often. SMEs tend to have, I guess, more stable growth. So if they're in the SME definition, they can continue to do that. But for a startup, the AI can almost be a disincentive to grow, because from the moment you pass the threshold, you no longer have the privilege of an SME. So it's a bit of it's hard to cut this, but just pointing out, right? But yes, how to get ready? I think there's a few things. Kai mentioned some. I mean, I think the most obvious starting point is the risk classification. Understand if whatever your tool you're looking at, is this an AI system in the first place? We've just seen the OECD publish a new definition. It's likely to be adopted for the AI Act. Sit down, have a chat with your team. Is it an AI system in the first place? Look into Article 6. Is it going to be high risk, prohibited, or low risk? These are things you want to know early. And I would encourage anyone to basically start doing this right now. There's some really good resources out there. We also try to provide support with that, but others as well. So I think this would be number one for clear to do. If you are high risk, then definitely give someone the task in the organization to actually thoroughly read the AI Act, or particularly the high risk requirements, to fully understand them. Even the research community is struggling with some of the requirements, standards in the making, but as Kai said, let's not wait until the last moment. Engage early. Make sure people are competent, as in like having authority, but also having the time, having the skills to make those judgments. Talk to your authorities. similar as Kai mentioned, I think this cannot be overstated. It's so crucial. I think if you're a machinery company or medical device, talk to your notified bodies, whoever is giving you the stamp in the end about the expectations, because I believe the time for setting up the governance structure from the AI office to the national competent authorities to the sectorial ones, be it finance and whatnot, this trickle down will take a lot of time. So it's important to create a pull effect from the SMEs. And if many ask the same authority, they will accelerate, hopefully at least, right? Or allocate funding or do something. But it's really important that SMEs are pulling, so to speak, to get those guidances which they urgently need. And yeah, I think the main call to action is start now, and also don't do it alone. I mean, you can do it alone. Clearly, everyone has to be responsible for what they're doing, but I think there's really lots of value in doing this together, be it with a sandbox, be it with peers like other similar SMEs, with associations like digital SMEs and others. The idea of what the Commission coined as the ecosystem of excellence and trust, I think this is what really is needed right now, right? Because in the sandbox, for instance, you're not going to share details about your AI system unless you trust or have your basis for that. So building those good relationships before you need them, I think is useful, but then also to be prepared to kind of invest time, effort, and thought into, maybe sharing something that others can criticize, quote unquote, or we have like a substantial exchange on topic, because only then learning can take place. So they kind of trust and learning are kind of interdependent. And therefore, I really would encourage everyone to get started now and also do it together. Maybe I stop here from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tila. I think it is very important, and as you have said, there are some steps which should be taken into account from a starting point as a definition. If we are using artificial intelligence with reference to OECD classification, for example, and what is the most important, to be ready for risk classification. So I think it's crucial, and of course it's not so easy. Yes, and your message also is very important to engage early. There are some aspects, financing, investments, owners of the company, leaders of the small company. It is very important, and I think that we need to continue this kind of preparation of list of steps, of list of activities which are important for small and medium enterprises, which will be important for small and medium enterprises when they will start to use artificial intelligence under the new legislation or during the time of preparation of implementation. Thank you very much. We will come back to you. And now I want to ask Miguel Vala del Olmo, Spain Permanent Representation to the European Union, Digital Transformation Attaché. Miguel is from the very beginning with us, so sorry that it was not so clear. And this is a unique possibility to ask him about Spanish presidency, because it is in this part of the year, it is a very strong and well-designed contribution done by Spanish presidency to finalize the Artificial Intelligence Act. Miguel, could you share with us what is your opinion and how the Spanish presidency want to finish the work to the end of this year? Please, Miguel, the screen is yours.
Thanks a lot, Michel. It's very nice that you give me the floor now. First of all, as you know, the Spanish presidency, as any other presidency, is an opportunity also to show what has been done in the AI landscape. And I liked very much both interventions from Kai and Till, because there was, let's say, a more regulatory approach on the one hand, on the other hand, more based on how companies were doing. And yeah, we are in the Spanish presidency now. My previous position was I was the deputy director for AI in Spain, and I had to carry with the Spanish AI strategy. and I can relate a number of things that have been said here. The first is, yes, the distinction between startup and SME is crucial. You cannot be asking the same thing for both of them when, in spite of all, we tend to group them always. I have a lot of, let's say, feedback from startups because many of my colleagues from the university ended up doing a startup. And when I see their day-to-day problems, we sometimes get to the irony that they are struggling with paying the wages at the end of the month and trying to raise funds in order to continue their activities. And in that circumstances, whenever our mouth gets full of words, I wonder how are we going to make things easier for them to comply with the AI Act, for example. I have the good example with the medical devices regulation. And over there, I can tell one of these histories where a friend of mine had a startup, and basically complying with medical devices regulation could imply breaking their business plan or not, okay? They had to hire very expensive consultancy services from the UK, for example, in this regard, in order to be able to comply and to go to the certification with all the warranties. And it was a tough work for them. Even if they had guidelines, I don't think they would have had the manpower within their company in order to read all those and then implement whatever is there. They really need to get to the consultancy services. So that to be said that guidelines are crucial. I mean, they're very important, but it might not be sufficient. It's important in terms that for a SME, it will give the ability to do their things on their own and lower costs, and that is a help for SMEs. For a startup, it would mean that maybe accessing to those consultancy services that are crucial for them to develop their whole product is at a more affordable price because you have been able to democratize the knowledge among consultancy services. And then you have more, let's say, a wider landscape to choose and therefore better prices, okay? So, I mean, it's crucial, but of course, they will also need to see, we will need to see other elements, okay? Sandboxes is one element, of course, and providing SMEs, let's say, with easier access to sandboxes can be one solution. In my opinion, also sandboxes sometimes steal a lot of time, and I don't know how many companies will be able to attend to their business and at the same time be participating in a sandbox, okay? So it's ironic, but it's the truth. But at the same time, if you open a sandbox and there can be a, let's say, a balance between big companies and small companies, maybe the big companies want to rely on smaller companies, on SMEs, to do their tests within the sandbox. And this is hugely useful because you will democratize the knowledge among them, and you will have the opportunity for the SME to specialize in one thing that could give them a competitive advantage. So therefore, that's a value that I can see. And of course, there's one element that I find crucial in the council approach. We made this real world testing. And those meant that companies could start testing under real world conditions only with some set of rules, but without having to go through the, let's say, through the channel of being supervised all the time by let's say, by a public administration. And I think it's very good because given the short cycles of development that you have in AI, it's very good to be quick in setting up an experiment of this kind. And again, if big companies can put on board also smaller ones, then we will be ensuring that innovation is having the proper support. Okay, so that's why we like that, and also because we really believe they make safer products. If you are able to test things, then you will be able to refine the product much more, and for that you shouldn't have, let's say, many burdens. Okay, and we have, this is something that we have seen in Spain, and this is something that has been seen perfectly well in the medical devices regulation too. So it's not like it's nothing new. It's clearly something that has some information behind to be taken. And then yeah, as I said, sandboxes are important. I remember when the first text of the AI Act came in April 2021. In August 2021, we started working in the Spanish sandbox for this AI Act. Okay, only a few days ago we could pass with a huge amount of work. We could pass the secondary legislation in order to be sure that we had the frame. So the call is coming pretty soon. So we have the opportunity. So it's super good to have this experience because we will allow companies to learn how to do things in the AI Act. We will also, as public administrations, will know how to do things within the AI Act because public administrations, they don't have a lot of human resources and they are not super well paid. So they struggle when doing things. And we will have another effect, and it's that we will democratize the knowledge to all the companies. So it's a very good experience. But what I want to say is that public administrations are also, as companies, they sometimes lack of all the resources that they need. So when you want to put into place something, you must be also realistic about what you can expect, okay? And for this purpose, we will need to allocate resources if we want to do things in pretty quickly. For our experience, I think that we did it in a proper time frame, given all the difficulties and the uncertainty. Now, of course, I am absolutely sure that things will come quicker because we have learned how to do them. So all in all, I believe that the AI Act contains a number of things that are useful for. It's not like they directly could support SMEs. Up to a certain extent they could, but especially that they would set the minimum set of tools in order to support them, okay? Through various means, so experiments, knowledge, creating a market of support, all those things will be super useful. But I think that we all need to be aware of what are the daily problems of a startup and also the daily problems of an SME, which, by the way, are not easy at all. But as I said, I think that we have taken the steps to make things easier when it comes to adopt a regulation. I think that we have made the effort. We have made the effort to put things clear in a proper time frame as fast as possible, since the AI Act has entered into force. And yeah, all in all, I think that we will have the means to ensure trust in this framework of excellence and trust. We will ensure trust with the tools in order to support this excellence. It's a little bit the conclusion I could say. But yeah, this is a little bit my initial thought, and again that. It's a challenge. I'm not here to say the contrary, but in spite of that, the main elements have been put onto the table. So thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you very much, Miguel. I think it is also important because, as you have mentioned, you and Spanish experience on building this ecosystem, this environment for regulatory sandboxes, yes, I think it's very useful not only for Spanish businesses, yes, but also for the small medium enterprises all over the European Union. And I agree that we need to distinct between startups and SMEs when we are talking about how to support them during the process of implementation of Artificial Intelligence Act and how to address properly the guidelines which will be very useful, I hope, during the time of implementation. And also, I want to highlight one issue which you have raised very strongly, in my view, democratization of knowledge. Because, when we are discussing about artificial intelligence, very often we are discussing about some burdens, problems, how to fulfill, how to complain all requirements and obligations. But you have mentioned what will be very important for SMEs, for their future development, for their future competitive advantages, because this is also the possibility to democratize the knowledge and to share the knowledge. Also, the process of consultation, the process of experimentation, the process of preparation of some pilot projects. Yes, it will be very, very, very important. So thanks a lot for inspiration, and we will keep fingers for Spanish presidency and the success of Spanish presidency. And now I want to ask Jakub Binkowski from the Union of Entrepreneurs and Employers from Poland. What is your view from the perspective of not big tech, yes, but small companies which want to be innovative, which want to be competitive, and which want to go forward using artificial intelligence? In your view, what are the challenges? What are the key points ensuring the future success and competitive advantages? And in your view, what are some burdens? Jakub, please, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. We've heard some quite optimistic points about the future of the AI Act and its impact on the SME sector, mostly about this regulatory sandboxes concept. I would like to get back somehow to more threats and dangers coming from the shape the AI Act is evolving towards. So a few, I believe, necessary points at this very beginning of my speech. So first of all, if some of you don't know, we are a pro-market organization advocating the regulation and unleashing innovation. And we maintain this position also with regard to digital regulations, which is not particularly popular statement at the moment. Of course, we see the need to introduce certain regulations regarding AI systems, but it is, of course, also important to do it proportionally, both at the level of designing regulations, and just like you said, that was a perfect point, the real work begins at the level of implementation of regulations, which we have seen in the past using, for example, GDPR process. So it's often explained that and stated that the increased level of regulation may paradoxically have a positive impact on innovation, because it somehow stimulates the search for ways to bypass restrictions with new solutions. And this, in some issues, may be true, although attempts in the field of, for example, electromobility are not particularly encouraging, and at this stage, at least. But what's important is that it does not apply to innovations using existing solutions. So therefore, it's important, and AI is an existing solution. So therefore, it is important that the AI Act is proportionate and does not interfere too much with the market. And so likewise, as an organization, we try to analyze regulations in a broad context. And this applies not only to digital regulations, of course, but SME companies are a part of not only value chain, but the overall economic landscape in which they coexist with other entities, including also large companies. So therefore, it often happens that although the regulation itself is not aimed directly at companies from the SME sector, it affects them indirectly by increasing the costs of services purchased on the market, or maybe limiting their availability. So we look at the AI Act a bit from this perspective. So from the point of view of SMEs, it's of course important that the regulation is proportionate and the general regulatory and administrative environment is predictable and, let's say, easy to use. But at the end of the day, it's also about not limiting small and medium-sized enterprises access to innovative services that really can help them develop their businesses in completely new directions. So getting back to the substance and to the regulation itself, and given the above, we have been supporters from the very beginning of the risk-based approach adopted in the original proposal. And this is why we are concerned about amendments slouching towards a multi-tiered approach. We believe that we should stick to the risk-based approach and actually make the approach to models dependent of their qualitative features, and not, for example, just like some of the proposals says now, the number of users or amount of data used to model. Also, another thing is that, of course, definitions may be problematic. And regarding AI Act, they are very problematic. So we believe that qualifying too broad of a catalog of systems as a so-called high-risk system will possibly lead to a negative impact on innovation and also negatively impact the development of companies from the digital sector in Europe in a consequence. So we consider the two above points to be the main threats at this stage. So first of all, too easy classification and too liberal classification of systems as high risk. And secondly, moving away from a risk-based approach towards multi-tiered approach. Those are two main threats that we see and perceive right now. And also there was this one statement that I would like to go back to. So regarding the statement that it's very important for the SMEs to participate in the legislative process, and also for the argument for the need of this extremely early involvement. And of course, this would be an ideal scenario, I think, but taking into account the number of legal acts being processed regarding SMEs, and mind that these are not only digital regulations, and B, the level of complexity of the EU decision-making process, which is quite easy to get lost for many companies in it, it will be very difficult. So this is a very important role for organizations like ours to play. We try to fulfill it as best as we can. And this would be that for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jakub. I think it is important. You have raised the problem of proportionality. How intelligence acts should be proportionate, yes? What is for innovation? What is for protection? Who should be protected? Who or what should be protected, yes? I think it's a challenge. It's not easy. But we also have the problem not only of high risk approach and this risk approach model, but also this multi-tiered approach, which is new, yes, because it was added in last month, yes. 1 year ago, I think it was out of our mind. ChatGPT revolution changed our mind, and it was the work done by the European Parliament and all partners, all stakeholders to find the framework, the new framework for this. And there are some question marks addressed to the to this multi-tiered approach, yes, because for many it is not so easy. For many it is a real challenge and problem. Changing the model of high risk approach and indicating the new and the new model, yes, of classification of some threats. So thank you very much for this, and I think now that we can continue our discussion. And I want to say that there are some new topics which were raised by all of you. You have mentioned the need of guidelines. You have mentioned the need of early engagement of small medium enterprises, with some concerns presented by Jakub. We have touched the problem of risk classification, and what was defined, as I properly understood, as a big opportunity to use the model of regulatory sandboxes to prepare some new solutions and to create the checking points for business. I also raised the question of harmonized standards, because also it is very important when we are discussing about requirements, what kind of language, what kind of models of requirements we will find. Yes, if it will be standards, technical or quasi-technical standards, it will be much more clear for users. Yes, so the question addressed to all of you: what do you think? What we can do now, thinking about much more precise final shape of legislation? What should be done? Yes, what part of the artificial intelligence legislation, artificial intelligence act, should be a little changed when we are thinking about small medium enterprises and their possibilities to be real actors at that area, and using artificial intelligence for making them much more competitive and developing European economy. Who wants to say something, or who wants to react on somebody's presentation, somebody's points which were indicated in your speeches? Please, raise your hand. Or starting. Okay, Kai, please.
Yeah,
the screen is yours.
Maybe exactly. Maybe I can start on your last point that you just mentioned. I think, well, in the AI Act, it's really important, and Miguel as a council and us from the Parliament both did, I would say, a good job in identifying potential overlaps with existing legislation. So, for example, it was already mentioned a risk assessment in the medical device regulation. Or if there are, for example, certain technical documentation obligations already existing in other laws, we tried, both co-legislators tried to, again, first identify those points in the AI Act, and then write, for example, that let's take the data protection impact assessment can be a part, or the risk assessment in the AI Act can be a part of the data protection impact assessment. With those things, we wanted to, again, make it easier for SMEs and startups to fulfill all those obligations, and really want to avoid a situation that you need to do all those things in parallel. Because, well, a big company like Microsoft in the end could manage this, even though they would, of course, not be happy to do so, but smaller market players definitely would really, really struggle. And as Jakob was saying, it often there is not even the knowledge about what now is all out there, and what you are facing as smaller companies. So making it extremely simple and clear, I think, is super important. And again, both co-legislators try to do so in the AI Act. There's probably still here and there some things in that we have missed. And again, there are so many new digital legislations out there, or are being just discussed, that probably only in the 1-2 years after, the Commission then also has a real important job to do to, again, make sure that it's a coherent system without collisions or contradictions, and so on and so on. And maybe a second point, beyond this, let's say, better regulation perspective, Miguel, I think, was mentioned from his friends and their startups. We saw, for example, with medical device regulation, again, a lot of problems, and I mentioned it also at the very beginning, because of a lack of funding of, in this case, notified bodies. So with the medical device regulation, what happened quite often is that companies are leaving the European Union, are making a third-party conformity assessment in the United States, and then coming back to the European Union, because here in Europe, it's taking 2 years or 3 years, while then if they are going to the United States, it's possible to complete everything in 6 months. So I think, yes, the laws we can always try to improve, but it's also a lot about investments in the good enforcement mechanisms, but also investments in promoting innovation, in also trying to get stronger VCs, trying to get more public investments, private-public partnerships, and so on and so on. So there really needs to be a kind of change in mindset, I would say, to really make it work and to enable our SMEs and startups to do even better work.
Thank you very much. I think it's crucial, yes, when we are discussing about implementation, to ensure the institutional and financial possibilities and possibilities for investment to make enforcement mechanisms much more adjusted to the real challenges. Yes, this is a real problem. We will have Artificial Intelligence Act, but there will be probably, without this kind of investment, without the public responsibility or public institutions' responsibility, we will have no opportunity to implement it properly. So thank you very much. Who want to continue this topic, this aspect of implementation of Artificial Intelligence Act? Till, what do you think about those requirements which should be formulated when we are discussing about implementation? Please, Till.
Thank you. I mean, I feel like the AI Act as such, the legislative process feels like the window of opportunity to actually make any changes has passed. So it feels like the file is almost closed. I mean, we know the next trilogue will be on December 6th, and then I think probably things will go their way. So I guess the question is, well, what can we do, assuming the AI Act is more or less finalized, right? I think it's a multi-actor effort. It's not for one to solve it, so to speak, right? And maybe to focus on two obvious ones. One is the public bodies, right? Starting from something like an AI office, but also looking into the member states and the national competent authorities that will be soon announced. And I think this is the point number one, right? Member states should now hopefully already have clarity, but if not, then create clarity of who actually is the national competent authority. So we see in some countries this is not defined yet. I think there's urgency to actually make that decision, which takes political priority and a political will to make that call. It's obviously not an easy one, but this is very important because from there, much of the other national structures will unfold. So for instance, in Germany, we have 16 states. So it's unclear who in those 60 states has competency to do what, right? So you have the Berlin level and you have the state level. And I'm sure I see Jakub nodding, right? Other countries have other constellations, but it needs to start at the top somewhere at the member state. So that's super important. Also important, I believe, is on the literacy and competence part is something like information campaigns, right? So I also, similar to your story, Miguel, I recall a conversation with another startup, and they were working with hospitals to improve the demand forecast for blood reserves, right? So there's a huge outcry. There's a shortage of blood reserves. They figured out a model on how to improve the accuracy of demand forecast, right? It would be much better than what they have, making use of it in a much better way. And we know they have expiry dates. Oftentimes they're not used and thrown away, and we have a shortage. They could not do it because of GDPR, because this entrepreneur spent hours and hours explaining the data protection officer of the hospitals what GDPR is about and what they can and cannot do. It should not be the job of entrepreneurs to explain the law, but it should be the job of the state to explain the law. So here, I think member states have opportunities and governing bodies to explain to whatever they are responsible for, to spell it out. Okay, what does it mean to have those guidance? What can you not do? I think this could help knowledge sharing. And then as another thing also on the state level is really the idea of the sandbox. I think sandbox are a great tool from what we understand, talking to other countries that have done this. I recently had a conversation with someone from Denmark. They have 5 companies a year going through a sandbox. So it's wonderful for the authority to learn applying that piece of law. This is great. So it's like a education program for the authority, but it's nothing that scales. It does not help like many companies, right? So here, to Kai's point on investments, it's important for governments to significantly put funding into this so that there is an environment that actually scales, so that not only a few companies, but many can benefit from it. Of course, if you're one of the brave SMEs going into Sandbox, that's wonderful, because ultimately your use case and the conversations you can have with the governing body on the other side can shape the guidelines they will issue later. I think that can be an incentive, but it's an effort. And as Kai mentioned, also the accreditation of notified bodies should be accelerated. This is on the state side. Maybe looking to what is it that companies can do. I try to make it short because I've seen that you raise your hand. So on the one thing, asking, okay, what applies to me, right? So there's so many things, and we painted once this picture of the legislative lasagna, right? Where you have different layers. So you have your product liability, you have your sectorial, you have your digital economy, and then you have your AI layer. And if you take a slice, certain provisions apply to you. So where do you stand? What is your slice of the legislative lasagna? You need to find out. That's an effort, but then Also, I think it's important for companies to actually allow time for capability building. We every now and then hear anecdotes of SMEs saying, well, our books are full with orders. That's wonderful, and they're very busy, and that's also wonderful. But if you want to go through this learning curve, you need to allocate some time for learning, actually. And so I think this is something that company owners can do. And this, my last point, is about checking contracts with their providers and vendors, because I think considering that SMEs tend to have, on average, less expertise in AI and machine learning, there's a higher chance that they will purchase AI-based services from elsewhere. So they enter a contractual relationship with some AI supplier, so to speak. And looking at the AI Act, maybe then this SME is the deployer, they need to double check, are those contracts they have ready for the AI Act, so that the burden is equally shared, and that they're not falling into any pitfalls. And when stuff have a bad experience.
Thank you very much. It was clear, and I think very inspiring information campaign, which is needed, credibility building, which is also the important, and support of education of enforcement institutions. Yes, they also should be educated. Yes, as SMEs, as all participants, as all stakeholders. Yes, and last of your intervention, you have mentioned these technical contracts with providers. I think it is one of the important issues, yes, especially when there are the big wave of new offers addressed to all possible clients, all possible participants, all possible small, medium enterprises. We will continue, but I want to check. There is a question presented by Karina Nimara, Finnish AI company, Silo. has today released the first results of for a multilingual model called Poro, which is said to be competitive with Meta's open source Llama models, LLA models. They also intend to open source a large part of the software. This could be good news for startups and anyone who wants to build solutions based on this model. What will be the impact of the Artificial Intelligence Act in this case? Who want to answer to not only to this question, not only question, it's also a statement and an assessment, yes, about new possibilities and the impact of Artificial Intelligence Act in the situation of using much more open sources. Tilly, could you continue?
Maybe I give Miguel first. He raised his hand, but happy also to comment.
Yeah,
Miguel,
please.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm afraid I'll make 2 comments. Okay, first, as an answer to the question that was posed, I don't think we can answer that now. I think that we will be in a better position in some weeks. Okay, I cannot say how many, but I think we'll be in a better position to say what the implications will be. Right now, I'd say it's unclear. Okay, it's unclear. Of course, if you take both the proposals from the Parliament or the Council, okay, separated. Let's start with the Parliament. They would have a huge amount of obligations. Then I would take the one from the general approach from the Council. They would have a huge amount of obligations, except if they declare clearly that they are not used for high risk. Okay, so which then they would lose a lot of clients. Okay, so because you would have to remove all the high risk use cases below. So I can tell you now what would happen under the general approach of the Council, or what would happen with the European Parliament. Now, what I can for sure tell is that from there, any solution that we are working on should be much less burdensome than the general approach, which could apply all the high risk requirements to those models, or the Parliament that foresees a lot of obligations also for those models. So that's the only thing I can say. The rest is left for let's say the end of the negotiations. Then of course there's one more element to be said, which is because before, Michelle, you asked about what would you modify or what would you add in the AI Act. Frankly, my role as presidency is not to give an opinion. We are a honest broker, and we have to bring the opinions from member states to the negotiations and try to find an agreement. So I cannot give, I cannot provide with an opinion here. Okay, of course I have one, but I cannot say it. But at least I can say something, which is more in the line of what has been discussed. Whatever the final shape of the regulation is, there must be, as much as possible, an active involvement of any authority that has a say in the implementation of the act, because especially in the beginning, it's going to be unknown, complicated, and yes, we will. Well, any of those authorities will need to make an effort. That's something that is clear. At least in Spain, this is how we are seeing this. And yes, then we will have to deal with our own constraints, but that would be the initial approach. So that's my contributions now.
Thank you very much. I think it is important, and let's continue. There is no another question, so let's continue. Jakub, what is your opinion about how to call final steps to finalize the Artificial Intelligence Act? What is your opinion with this perspective of SMEs development and supporting them in using artificial intelligence as a key driver for innovation.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So regarding regulations, just like I mentioned before, we are mostly concerned at this stage about the high-risk approach evolving towards a multi-tiered approach, which is one thing. And the second thing is about the systems qualified broadly as high-risk systems. So those are two things that we feel are pretty much crucial. But I would like to continue the thread about raising the awareness of SMEs regarding the impact of this regulation, and also providing some information on it, which I think is extremely important because let's keep in mind that AI Act involves not only tech companies, not only startups, also completely traditional businesses can use and actually are using AI models, AI systems, services based on artificial intelligence as a technology. And I think the worst nightmare of the EU regulator would be a micro business wondering if they can use a specific AI tool in order to make their business more effective and more profitable for them. And coming to the sense that they maybe should not use it just in case, because it may be forbidden, it may be not allowed, they don't know, they don't have the information. So that's the place, that's the area that I believe the role of governments, the role of NGOs, the role of agencies of all sorts is extremely important. So to raise awareness in the SMEs, but also in more broadly, generally, business sector about the regulation and its impact on what is forbidden, what is allowed, how does it impact my activities. That is very important.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jakub. I'm looking at this, some questions. There is no additional. But we have 10 minutes, 9 minutes. So please, when we are looking at Artificial Intelligence Act, we know what kind of negotiations are and how they look like. The next trilogue negotiations will be on 6th of December. The early plan was to finish the work on Artificial Intelligence Act to the end of this year. What are your recommendations? What we should do and what is possible to do to the end of the work of Artificial Intelligence Act, ensuring all those values and drivers which are important for small, medium enterprises and startups development. Kai, can we start with your recommendation?
Yeah, I think in this point I can make it really sure, because Miguel and I, so Parliament and Council, I think at the moment cannot, I think Till was also saying it, we cannot now reintroduce completely new big points or reflect on other things, because as you just underlined, there is a lack of time, and the mandate is coming to a close very soon. So what Miguel and I and others can do right now is really to make sure that we are creating an AI Act that is providing high legal certainty, is easily understandable, also for SMEs and startups. I don't know if we manage this, because sometimes the AI Act is now rather complicated, even for those who wrote it. But yeah, this is at least our goal, that we are creating a law that is not too complicated and not too complex, or then, as I said, contradicting with other norms and so on. And this, yeah, I think over the next weeks should be also one of our main priorities, because under time pressure, you know it from your time in the European Parliament, under this very strong time pressure, sometimes quality is decreasing. And I think this, especially when it comes to the AI Act, with a topic that is so complicated, we should really prevent and avoid. This I think would be the point from my side.
And sorry, thank you, Kai, and Till, please, your recommendations.
Yeah, I think it's been mentioned before. I think the AI in itself, the negotiations are coming closer to an end. So there's, I think, close to no chance to really, I think, make a huge impact there. But I think what is worth remembering is that with the finalization of the AI Act, there's still a number of things that need to be decided after that. For instance, common specifications, delegating acts and implementing acts. The standardizations is ongoing. Decisions about the enforcement structures will be implemented and operationalized, so to speak. So the AI Act has been criticized for being vague, but I think it's in the nature of that piece of law that it is vague on purpose, it being future-proof. So it means that the AI Act needs to be translated and operationalized. And I think in this process of operationalization, many decisions will be made on different levels that will ultimately affect how compliance can be established later on and demonstrated and enforced and so on. And I think these are some of the topics that companies can focus on right now, right? To at least that's also our how we look at this, right? So the AI Act is almost checked off, but what are the things that need to be decided next year? And are there any interesting developments one can maybe engage with, or just be mindful of that those decisions will come and affect all players here in the ecosystem. So I think these are my 2 cents in terms of what can we do now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Miguel, your recommendations?
Well, right at this stage, I think this is a very late stage of the negotiation. This has already been done. So my only recommendation to myself or anyone working on this is work hard, try to get the best, and that's all, because we are really in the last stages, and yeah, it's well, we have to close this, and we'll basically have to not to sleep a lot and have to work a lot. And I think that's the only thing I can say. And as I said, also taking into account, at least for me, being a presidency, I can only listen and execute. So I will stick to that.
Yeah, thank you very much. You raised to do the best. Yes, so I think it's a good message. Yes. In this final period of work on artificial intelligence. And Jakub, what are your recommendations to that special time to finish and to finalize Artificial Intelligence Act? Please, Jakub.
Thank you. So my recommendations would be, I believe, brief and quite simple. So first of all, restrain from expanding the high risk category. Second, keep to the risk-based approach. And third, make sure that businesses feel, after AI Act comes into force, feel comfortable about implementing AI technology into their activities and endeavors in order to develop new products and develop their businesses. Because that's essentially what we are aiming for, right? For the European economy and European businesses to become as innovative and as effective as they can get. And in order to make it happen, our businesses need information. So please have in mind that you need to provide the information to them and let them know what is forbidden, what is allowed, how they can proceed. So those would be my 3 basic recommendations.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jacob. So we are at the end of our discussion. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you very much to our audience, and if I can summarize the discussion, I want to say, make artificial intelligence as a legal certainty, it is important, yes, for implementation. To make artificial intelligence act understandable for all stakeholders, especially during the time of implementation and after that, during the time of using artificial intelligence, which means that we need some kind of guidelines, yes, and also we need to invest in institutional enforcement or enforcement institutions to be better prepared to this. We need to avoid overlapping the solutions, and we need to avoid the lack of coherent digital solutions. It requires the final stage to discuss about what is coming, what kind of solutions are coming or are existing in DSA and DMA, and if it is important to repeat it in Artificial Intelligence Act. Some kind of roadmap, what we should do when we will have the time for implementation, which still was raised very strongly, and how to translate and operationalize this solution. Also, I want to make clear that you have mentioned very often during our discussion the need of early engagement of especially small, medium enterprises. Do the best and restrain high-risk models and consider what is the purpose of high-risk model, which was proposed at the beginning with all changes in classification, and this new model, tired approach, if we can do with this, but I think that clear legal solutions which will give the legal certainty will be very important for that. And I think that also I want to add what was raised by you during the discussion, that we need some kind of information campaign, and we need to develop awareness of using of artificial intelligence in the society, in European societies, but also, of course, in small, medium enterprises. And I want to add one point. Use regulatory sandboxes, yes, for SMEs. I think this is very, very important message. So thank you very much for this discussion. We can consider if some recommendations, in some points of recommendations will be useful. So with our colleagues with SME Europe, SME Connect, we will continue and send the information about our discussion. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you, Kai. Thank you, Till. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Jakob. Have a nice afternoon, and consider how to do the best and to achieve goals to make the very good and very well designed Artificial Intelligence Act in the European Union.